Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the third episode of the 21st Century Blues podcast. I'm joined once again by Kevin Holt. We had a great discussion with Kevin on the last episode about the state of romantic relationships currently, and like we gave some examples. We talked a bit more generally, but today Kevin is back for a second discussion about a similar topic, but this time we'll get more specific. We'll dive into the reasons why there are these challenges, what should be done, like on a personal, I guess, and on a larger scale to make things better. So yeah, Kevin, welcome back. Great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, love being here. Thanks for having me again, Tim.
So, we figured that since we're just two guys talking about this, and the topic is about, female and male relationships, it would be not just useful, but kinda fair and almost necessary to include some women's perspectives as well. So, can you share, Kevin, can we start off by sharing your friend's experience that you told me about a little bit before?
Yeah, and this came as a result of our discussion later where we thought, yeah, this is good, but we really would it would be nice to have the feminine angle of on this. And I know you reached out to a friend, which we're going to talk to later. And I reached out to a friend of mine she's probably 40-ish, 42, about my age,
Mhm.
divorced with two kids, and she is a couples therapist.
Mhm.
So she deals with this stuff all the time. And I was just curious what she thought was what are the main problems with relationships nowadays. And she said a lot. Like I probably am not going to read this entire thing because she also went on to some other tangents. But she did say she kind of reinforced what we said last time, where we kind of ended with there's really no this unicorn fairy tale situation. Relationships are our work. You have to work. You have to fight against sometimes your tendencies. And she said, obviously, having kids is a whole other thing. But she said connection can be a lot of work. And in her experience and with her clients, she seems to see that often one person is kind of, I don't know if lazy is the right word, but one person ends up feeling like they should be cared for. And then the other person is the one who is either the mother figure or the father figure ending up doing that work. And then you don't have a sexy dynamic anymore. Then you have more of a dependency parent-child dynamic. And I guess there are some people that are into that, where it's like that podcast that's called Call Me Daddy or whatever. But for me, I'm not particularly interested in that dynamic. I don't want to feel like I'm dating a child that I have to, and I've had this before in relationships where I've dated women that were just a disaster in their life, like couldn't get their finances together, were in debt, would never hold down a job. And I felt like I had to be the dad a lot and just kind of like manage their life because they couldn't do it themselves. And that's tiring. And then I kind of just at some point don't want to do that anymore, right? Ideally, you want someone who you don't have to take care of on the day to day so that you're ready with energy to take care of them when they really need it, like when they have a health problem or bad luck or whatever. So yeah, and she also touched on the point that we made about social media, and she says that in our instant gratification society, people just don't try because it's easy to find someone new, and maybe I want to be taken care of, and maybe I'm going to just keep looking for that person who wants to take care of me. So I won't try as hard, and I'll just go back on the app until I find that right person. She said a lot of other things, but like we were discussing earlier, I think you plan to have her on. She would be a good guest.
Yeah, I hope that she's up for it. I think that she would definitely be a great guest. And I
What do
just
you think about what she said? Sorry.
yeah, I mean, I just wrote down the note that this sounds to me kind of like fast food relationships. It's just like something quick on the go. And also, I think that what she said is very important to like how our expectations are set when it comes to these things, right? And how the standards are, because I'm not sure if this was on the last episode or if this was during our unrecorded discussion, but basically, if you keep being shown that that attractive people on the app are attracted to you, that kind of messes up with your standards and expectations because you see that you can get that top percentage of men, top percentage of women, wherever you're coming from. And it makes it, I guess, less likely for you to settle for a mate because you know that you supposedly can reach the expectations that you have, and that makes you less likely to lower them for somebody who maybe has just some of the traits that you're looking for, but not all of them. I don't know. What do you think about this?
Yeah, that's part of it. But what I liked about her answer is she also is now introducing another angle, which is to what extent are we products of how the opposite parent raised us? So,
Mm,
like, we have this idea of the mama's boy, and that's very common in some cultures,
hmm
especially apparently Italian men who can't be separated from their moms ever. And they go home and they get looked after, they do the laundry, do the cooking, and then they go into a relationship with sort of the expectation that their girlfriend is going to do all that. So
hmm
that's the classic mama's girl. Then we've got the mama's boy, sorry. And then we've got the daddy's girl on the other side, the girl that just, oh, I don't understand finance. My dad always took care of that. He always paid the bills, and then gets into a relationship with the guy. And well, surprise, surprise, now you're going to be that guy. And
hmm
it's almost like it's hard to get my head around sometimes that sometimes parenting out of love, they kind of make the child not independent from the other
hmm
gender. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just thinking, do you think that this is more pronounced with people who are only children, or do you think that, that's pretty much the same? I mean, it has the same chances of occurrence across the board.
Yeah, it's a good question. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have an opinion on that. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a correlation by culture or anything. It just seems to be parenting. Um, and it's too bad because, especially as a guy, I do see a lot of guys who get mothered to a very late age,
Mm-hmm.
and they just do not develop the skills to cook for themselves or even like clean up the house for
Mm-hmm.
themselves because they're just so used to the mom doing that.
Yeah, and then I guess they're constantly in some kind of relationship, and then
Yeah.
they always have that mother role taken care of, which means that they never need to suck it up and do the work themselves, I guess.
Yep. They're just replacing that, what they interpret as love from the feminine, with another woman, and women doing the same thing in a different way.
But the problem here is, and this very neatly ties into what my female friend said, and I think she's quite a bit younger. She's 25, so it's interesting to have that perspective as well. And basically, what you were saying now, what we were talking about now, is an instance of, in this particular case, it's the woman who is mothering her partner is still being very feminine, but the guy is not being masculine in this relationship, right? And this is one of the main things that my friend pointed out, that for in order for a relationship between a man and a woman to work, the man needs to embrace his own masculinity, and in doing so, that allows the woman to embrace her own femininity, and both of them can kind of be their best selves. And as long as one part of this is missing, if the woman is just is displaying femininity and is embracing femininity, while the guy is expecting to be mothered and taken care of and pampered, then that femininity will start to fade sooner rather than later, because the woman will not feel, her love will not be reciprocated. She will not feel safe. She will not feel secure in the relationship, and it will just lead to more friction. Not because the woman doesn't enjoy taking care of her partner, but just because the partner is expected to be masculine and to do his part in the relationship as well, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose in that situation, the woman would be frustrated because she feels like she would have to put on both roles. Like she's doing the feminine part and then she's still got to do some of his job.
Mhm.
And d did she tell you specifically what she felt? Like, what does it mean for her to be feminine and what is the expectation of being masculine?
Yeah, basically the thing is that what's not masculine and what could be deemed as toxic masculinity. I know that this phrase gets thrown around too much these days to the point of men feeling unsafe to even display positive masculine values. But she said that, what is not masculine to her is being egoistic, being egocentric, acting like they're bigger than God and just deserving praise, while a masculine man is somebody who's, open and honest in their communication, is reliable, loyal, and is able to provide a safe environment when she can feel safe enough to not feel guilty about his support because, yeah, because obviously feminism does have an impact. She said that, yeah, she used to be a feminist, but then as soon as she was in a healthy enough relationship that was stable and secure enough, she was able to let go of that much more because she was safe in her own femininity. She was safe in expressing her own emotions. She said that one of the worst things that can happen is when her emotions are discounted or dismissed as just being sensitive or being dramatic, and that makes her feel very unsafe and makes her feel like she can't trust the person and she can't be herself in the relationship, and that also makes her less likely or more reluctant to accept his help and support because she doesn't feel safe with him. So in order for her to be her true feminine self, the man has to be open and honest. She said that what she's looking for most in a guy is basically being able to have these kind of conversations from the start, not shying away from them, not leaving them for a later time when they might be more problematic or when there might already be all these feelings involved or whatnot. So she gave a lot of really great insights about this, I think.
So she feels, I mean, sounds like she's more interested in the traditional, the man provides, maybe provides the home and food and security, and then that makes her feel comfortable to do what, take care of the house, take care of him, express herself. So that's what she's looking for.
Well, she also wants to be independent, but before she would feel guilty about even accepting a man's help in this situation, but now she's just embracing everything more.
Hmm.
And I guess, opening her up also more to creativity and stuff like that. I think she still wants, and I guess that it will make it less likely for her to accept and to look for a job just to have a job, but it will actually, help her to find something that really fulfills her and that she's really into instead of just something that makes her money so that she can survive the month, right?
Yeah, because that's what men do. Yeah.
But everything that she said actually kind of coincided or led very neatly into the next issue that we were planning on discussing today, which is this issue of evolution and the clash between societal versus biological evolution, right? We talked about this a little bit during our unrecorded discussion and how basically a lot of what's happening right now, all of these frictions in these man-women relationships uh, are kind of impacted by the societal evolutions of the last 150 years. So, being more progressive, being more liberal, being more open, which are obviously key things in society and for society to progress and flourish. But it's very hard to balance that with, I don't know, 500,000 years, a million years, depends on how deep, how far a view back you take, but a really long time of biological evolution, which is super, super ingrained in our lizard brain, basically, and how, it's not trivial or it's weird to expect that something that's been going on for 100 years can counteract or override something that's been going on for 500,000 years.
Right. I had the thought the other day, maybe slightly controversial perhaps,
Hmm.
where the phrase in my mind was feminism great for the person, perhaps bad for the human race.
Mm.
And
Whoa.
what I mean by that is kind of touching on what we said. I think everybody wants equality. I don't really think there's many men out there that are saying, no, women should not have the opportunity to work and access to education that men have. But like we talked about, because of the hypergamous nature of women, as women enter the workforce, they earn more money. Then we have the issue we talked about last time, where they're looking for higher status males. So their
Hmm.
dating pool gets reduced. So that's one factor, maybe why
Hmm.
people aren't connecting as much or having as many children. And then we can tie that into all of the reasons why people aren't having as many children anymore in the developed societies. One, there seems to be a fertility decline generally, where I think it's like 50% less men have 50% less testosterone than just one or two generations ago. Um, and women also, I don't know the numbers on women, but my friend was saying there's a similar decline in fertility of women. So there's that factor. And then there's the fact that, great, we all like women working and stuff, but what happens now is now you have two incomes, and that also leads to greater inflation. Where back 80 years ago, you had one person earning, and that one salary would support a family of four or five people. Impossible in most countries nowadays. Now both parents have to work, and now it's more expensive to make ends meet, and now it's more expensive to raise kids. So it's another factor for people having fewer kids. And now we have this further issue of the seemingly lack of connection, lack of pairings, and people who just kind of say, I'm done with the opposite sex, leading to even less connection and perhaps even fewer children. And then we kind of touched on the population decline
Hmm.
problem last time. So it seems like there's a lot of so many factors mixing together here to create these issues.
I just want to add something and relate it to because it's really weird. I had a course during my postgraduate studies on Anglo-American feminist literary studies, and obviously the teacher was a feminist, but she was very, very objective. She was very cool about it. She kept emphasizing how this is mostly about power relations in society. It's not about women hating men or men hating women or having there having to be any compensation for that. She said it's about gender roles, about power structures. And one of the main points that she was making throughout the class, she kept highlighting this, is that modern liberal feminism at the time often the liberation of a particular middle class woman came at the expense of a lower class woman having to take on even more of these supposed feminine duties, right? So, for example, okay,
Mm.
I'm progressive. I don't need to raise kids on my own. I'll just hire a nanny. But then the
Right,
nanny has to take on the responsibility of raising children, right? So on a personal level, what you said, right? It's good for the individual on a personal level, it's I'm more empowered, but on a societal level, the problem doesn't really go away. It just gets outsourced to somebody else, right? So I
right.
guess there would need to be some kind of systemic change. And also, yeah, one interesting part, like if we now take also the other perspective, what you're talking about just now, right? So the problems with double income, the pool of available partners becoming smaller because of dating up and looking for higher status. And if your status is now much better, then that means that there will be just by default fewer people with higher status. But also this paradox of capitalism, right? So very often people will be very critical of capitalism, but they will then insist that yes, everybody needs to be a part of this system that we've just established is not a good one. So, like, why expend so much energy in trying to get people into a system that you've just established is not a good one instead of, maybe investing more of that energy into finding new ways, new systems that can incorporate this in a more human, more, I guess, smoother manner that causes less friction in society and kind of starts to address some of these challenges that we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way it's not going to change. The systems have to change. Just basic demographics is going to force it. because all of our growth models and all of our social welfare systems are built on the idea of increasing population growth.
Hmm.
And if the growth stops or becomes negative, then those break, right? And I was just looking at this yesterday because I teach one of my side jobs, I teach economics to Chinese kids. And I was looking at China specifically. And China's current population is 1.4 billion. At current birth rates, by the year 2100, it will be 650 million. They're literally going to lose 50% of their population.
Wow.
Um, so any system built on those ideas is going to fail. And I know in the West, a lot of it started after World War II, where we developed these welfare systems and unemployment systems and Social Security based on the baby boom generation, which were people were having three, four kids.
Hmm.
And it only sustains itself if you have enough young people working, supporting the elderly and retired people. So it's going to change. I don't know how it's going to change. I don't know if we figure out a way to incentivize people to have kids somehow or provide free daycare. I don't really know. But then that costs something, and there's already debt problems in all of the Western developed societies. That's going to make them worse. So, yeah, it's going to have to change. Hopefully, it will be smooth, but I think we're in for a rough ride at some point as a planet.
Yeah, probably not just in the context of romantic man and women relationships, right? I think on a larger scale, things are getting rougher and rougher, to the point where it's not just noticed in retrospect, but the frog is actually noticing the temperature of the water getting
Yeah,
higher as it is getting boiled. An
yeah,
interesting point about the promotion of child rearing as something good, because I think that this is also one trend that has kind of contributed to this decline in birth rates. Just it's not that it's having children is negatively advertised, but not having children is super positively advertised, right? You have these
yeah,
covers of Time magazine where the headline is like, "Oh yeah, I'm traveling the world in my 30s because I decided not to have children." And it's like, yeah, sure, and this ties back to societal versus biological evolution, right? So for the past 50, 70 years, we've had the luxury of not necessarily having to have children, but throughout the entire history of society and of planet Earth and all other species, because we are mammals after all, no matter how societally advanced, no matter how rational we are, at the end of the day, we're just mammals and we'll organize our lives based on very intrinsic mammal instincts and on our very nature. And all no other mammals on the planet, as far as I know, have the luxury on a large scale to say, "Oh, I'm just not gonna have children anymore. I'm just gonna as a as a whale, I'm just gonna travel the oceans and just sing my songs, and I'm not gonna have children." No, it's I also, if you decide not to have children, that you kinda lay off the responsibility of society continuing on other people, right? I think it's
right.
not just something that should be desired. It's something it's key for our survival. There's no other way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's a way to have skin in the game in humanity is by having
Mhm.
kids. I don't have kids. What do I care if humanity survives or not, right? I got no skin in the game, so that's one way. And like you said, the biology point, I think until up until maybe 200 years ago, 300 years ago, maybe people you had to have like 6 to 8
Mhm.
kids, because half of them would die before the age of 5. So most people were farmers, and you needed kids like to grow up and help with the farm, or you wouldn't make it, right? And now we have like it's an interesting luxury that we have now, where we can just say, "Hey, we have the choice. The society supports us. We don't need to have kids." But then the question is, what? Yeah, I don't know what the future will look like unless we just have just machines doing everything, and then the few people that stick around, you know, they can have a kid or not have a kid. I don't know.
Oh man. Also the point you made, right, about having to work. more, and that makes it less convenient to raise children because the costs are so high, especially if there's more than one kid. But also, the other edge of this particular sword is like, before when you had six, 5, 6 kids, you knew that you would be taken care of once you got too old to work,
Yeah.
right? You knew
No,
that.
government does it.
Yeah, but the government will, the pensions rates are getting smaller and smaller. How long you have to work, at least here in Europe and particularly in Slovenia, is getting longer and longer. And also, even now, people can't afford to survive. They can barely survive just on their pensions alone. And I can't imagine what that will be like when I, for example, retire. And without
Mm.
children, it just, I don't even want to think about it because it's just too bleak and I don't want to be too much of a doomer.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of directions we can go in with that in terms of economics and how that's all calculated and stuff. But I mean, respect to single moms for real,
Hmm.
because they've got to hold a job, they've got to pay for daycare. I mean, I don't know how they do it. Like you'll probably really enjoy talking to this friend of mine because, she, like I said, single mom, 2 kids, she's got like 2 different jobs. I just don't know how she fits it all in. And I have other friends that they do well. Like they're in Switzerland, they earn good salaries, and they're always complaining to me. They're like, "Wow, having kids is so expensive because there obviously everything's privatized. You pay lower tax, but that means you have to pay everything out of pocket. So
Hmm.
they've got to pay, I don't know, they're paying like 2,000 Swiss francs a month per kid just for
Wow.
like just afternoon, like 3 afternoons a week or something crazy. Um, and then plus all the other stuff, the clothes, the baby carriage, and so on. There are other countries that I think are more pro children. Norway and Sweden, for instance, are two that come to mind. Yeah, you pay extremely high tax, but they have very good policies for kids, as far as I understand. They have very generous work leaves. They have like free daycare, free school. So it seems to me if you want to promote having children, you have to kind of go that route. You've got to make it less crushing
Mhm.
financially to have kids. Then the question is just how you finance it.
Yeah, I think that these points about like longer leaves for for mothers especially, that's something that's really important. Here in Slovenia, I think the maternal leave is an entire year, which is
Yeah.
awesome, which is I think more than necessary. I mean, a year is essential for a child's healthy development, then that first year is definitely crucial. So that's definitely one one key factor. But I guess that these kinds of laws can lead to more sexist hiring practices in some instances. So again, it's such a complex and layered problem, as we established at the beginning of the first conversation, that it's very hard to find clear-cut solutions that will work in every single instance. But I do think that we're kind of now seeing a kind of return to more traditional values, as we said, with the example of my friend who's very young and used to be a feminist, but now you could say that her value, I mean, basically her perspective is very close to what us two guys would just talk about on our own, right? About
Right.
about uh, this having to embrace both the female has to embrace her femininity and the man has to support her by embracing his own masculinity in this sense.
It's interesting in that a lot of Eastern cultures feel
Hmm.
that way, and they haven't really jumped on board with feminism. And I guess that's why a lot of Western guys like to come out to Asia. Because I
Hmm.
also met quite a few Russian women while I was out here, and they would always say the similar things to your friend about, yeah, you have to, embrace the sex or the sexual energy, and yeah, the man's supposed to take care of the girl. That allows her to be creative and blah blah blah. The women out here are very feminine, but they work hard too. It's not
Hmm.
that they just stay at home and have kids. So I think that's what appeals. That's what the appeal is for a lot of the Western guys that are kind of sick of the feminism. They come out here and they see women that are caring and they're like the idea of being a mom, but they also work hard,
Hmm.
especially where I live in Bali. The men are useless. Like the men here are the laziest men I've ever met. It's the women that are running this place. It's crazy.
Now, also, I think it's kind of a misconception to 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 treat motherhood as an insignificant and trivial job. I think that, being a mom is one of the most important things you can do in the world. Like being responsible for a good person, being part of society, that's like more important to me than any desk job, than any office job or anything like that. So I hope that we can come at a place where neither of these is demonized, neither of these is seen as better than the other, but they're just both seen as good options for people in society, I guess.
And where do you think that came from? Where do you think it was just a pure rejection of everything traditionally feminine from the feminist movement that they now look down on those roles?
I think sometimes it can be a kind of backlash, you are so disillusioned with a particular ideology or based on a particular discovery about life that you will just go totally the other direction to kind of compensate for it. That's one part,
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So instead of finding meaning in the idea of being a mother, that idea has been rejected by many, and now they're looking for it in other ways like career or I don't know, starting a business or travel.
I guess, oh man, now we're opening up new interesting areas of discussion, which we probably don't have time for on this particular one. But I guess one point that is important is uh, if we accept that we do live in a pretty patriarchal society, then it makes sense that the patriarchal values are the ones that will be seen as better, more desired. And I guess that it's maybe wouldn't be so much a rejection of femininity, but more so the desire to have these values which society appears to desire, which are masculine values, and just having kind of and I think it's like a pendulum, right? It kind of swings in one direction too much, then it swings in that other direction, and we kind of want it to be more level somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, they realize, oh crap, now I have to go to work. Now I have to deal with micromanaging bosses. Now I have to deal with the illusion of promotion, and that doesn't exist. Okay, now maybe I'll go back to the old ways.
Yeah, I guess some, but yeah, I mean, tying back to what my friend said, if you are able to be so secure in your femininity and I guess in a relationship, in a stable relationship, that you're able to look for a job, for something to do that actually fulfills you and where you're allowed to express yourself, then I guess, things like promotion and money become less important because you do get that fulfillment out of a job and you do get some kind of income.
Right. Yeah, that's what we all want is to be fulfilled. So if you can figure out how that works for you, then I think that's the challenge in any relationship because it often seems to be that one person it kind of has to sacrifice for the other one. Like
Mhm.
if it's very hard for two people to make it pursuing creative endeavors. Usually it's one person that's holding down a job that they don't like just for the sake of the relationship. And hopefully you can find someone where that's a good balance.
Well, no, Kevin, that's a great note to finish this conversation on. Thanks again. I
Okay.
think this was even more important and even more interesting than the first one. Thank you again for joining us. It was great having you on again.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thanks again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And yeah, we'll see you again next time.